There are people who spend so much of their lives helping everyone else that they quietly forget to ask themselves one important question. If I stopped fixing every problem, would I still feel worthy of love? Your soulmate never asked themselves that question, not because they avoided it intentionally, because life slowly taught them that being useful was the safest way to feel valued. Whenever someone needed advice, they were there. Whenever someone carried emotional weight, they became the one who listened. Whenever responsibilities appeared, they accepted more than anyone expected. At first, this brought them purpose. Over time, it also brought something they could not explain, a quiet emptiness, because they noticed a painful pattern. Many people appreciated what they did. Very few truly saw who they were. This message is for the soul who has been wondering whether someone connected to your journey is beginning to understand the difference between being appreciated for what they give and being loved for who they are. Something inside your soulmate has begun to awaken. It happened on an ordinary evening. A close friend thanked them for always being dependable. Those words should have felt comforting. Instead, they created an unexpected silence inside their heart. Dependable, reliable, helpful. They had heard those words many times. But another question quietly appeared. When was the last time someone simply appreciated my presence? That single thought stayed with them. Over the following days, they began noticing how often they measured their value through what they could offer. If they solved a problem, they felt important. If they made someone smile, they felt successful. If they couldn't help, they quietly felt guilty. For years, they believed this was love. Now they were beginning to realize it was something different. It was approval built upon usefulness, and approval disappears whenever usefulness ends. Real love does not. That realization changed the way they looked at the people in their life. Some relationships had always revolved around expectations, others around convenience. Only a few allowed them to simply exist without constantly giving something in return. As they reflected, one memory gently surfaced. It was connected to you. They remembered a conversation where nothing needed to be solved. No advice, no fixing, no performance. Just two people sharing an honest moment. Looking back, they understood why that memory had remained so peaceful. For perhaps one of the first times in their life, they felt valued without having to earn it. That feeling became impossible to forget. They realized they had confused being needed with being loved. Being needed creates pressure. Being loved creates peace. Being needed often depends on what you can provide. Being loved allows you to rest without fearing you'll lose your place. This understanding reached deeper than they expected. They thought about how many times they had hidden their own struggles because they believed strong people should never ask for support. They remembered moments when they smiled while carrying burdens no one knew about. Not because they wanted to hide, because they were afraid people would value them less if they stopped being the one who always held everything together. Now they saw the truth. The heart cannot feel fully loved while constantly pretending to be unbreakable. For the first time in years, they allowed themselves to imagine a different kind of relationship, one where both people could lean on each other, one where vulnerability was welcomed instead of avoided, one where silence did not need to be filled with solutions because simple presence was already enough. As that vision became clearer, they quietly recognized something beautiful. Your connection had never asked them to become a hero. It had invited them to become human. And perhaps that is why it still carries such quiet meaning inside their heart. Because the deepest kind of love is never built upon constantly proving your value. It is built upon discovering that your presence alone has always been enough. As this realization quietly settled into their heart, your soulmate found themselves looking at their entire life through a completely different lens. For years, they had believed that the strongest people were the ones who never needed anything from anyone. They admired independence. They admired resilience. They admired the ability to carry heavy responsibilities without asking for help. But now they were beginning to understand something they had overlooked. Even the strongest hearts deserve a place where they can rest. That thought stayed with them for days. It appeared while they prepared breakfast before sunrise. It returned during long walks after work. It followed them into peaceful evenings when the world became quiet enough for honest reflection. Every time it appeared, it carried the same gentle message. You are allowed to be loved without constantly proving your value. Those words felt unfamiliar, not because they disagreed with them, because they had never truly believed them before. As this new awareness continued growing, they began noticing how often they apologized for simply having emotions. If they felt overwhelmed, they apologized. If they needed time to think, they apologized. If they couldn't solve someone else's problem immediately, they quietly carried unnecessary guilt. It was almost as if they believed their own humanity was an inconvenience. One afternoon, while sitting beside a peaceful lake, they watched gentle ripples move across the surface of the water. Nothing forced those ripples to exist. They appeared naturally. Then they disappeared just as naturally. Then they disappeared just as naturally. In that simple moment, another understanding entered their heart. Feelings were never meant to be controlled every second. They were meant to be experienced, understood, and allowed to pass with compassion. That lesson became surprisingly freeing. For the first time in years, they stopped criticizing themselves every time they felt emotionally vulnerable. Instead of asking, "Why am I feeling this?" they began asking, "What is this feeling trying to teach me?" That small change transformed the relationship they had with themselves. Curiosity slowly replaced self-judgment. Compassion replaced pressure. Patience replaced urgency. And naturally, their heart returned once more to your connection, not because they were searching for answers, because they were beginning to understand what had made the connection feel so different. They remembered that your presence had never demanded perfection. You never asked them to always have the right words. You never expected them to carry every emotional burden alone. Whether either of you realized it at the time or not, there had been space for authenticity. Looking back now, they understood why that feeling had remained so unforgettable. It was one of the few places where they never felt like they had to earn belonging. They simply felt accepted. That memory quietly reshaped the way they defined love. Love was no longer about constantly giving until nothing remained. Love was about sharing, listening, supporting, receiving, allowing both hearts to breathe without fear of disappointing one another. As this understanding deepened, they also noticed changes in the way they interacted with everyone around them. They became comfortable saying, "I need a little time." They became comfortable accepting kindness without immediately trying to repay it. They became comfortable admitting they did not always have every answer. Strangely, those moments did not make people respect them less. They created more genuine relationships, because honesty invites honesty. Presence invites presence, and authenticity quietly gives others permission to stop pretending as well. This realization filled them with a peaceful confidence they had never experienced before. They no longer wanted relationships built upon obligation. They wanted relationships built upon mutual understanding, not where one person rescued the other, but where both people inspired each other to become more emotionally free. Somewhere within that vision, your connection naturally remained. Not as a perfect memory, as an important lesson. A reminder that the safest kind of love is often the quietest. It does not constantly demand attention. It simply creates an environment where two people can become more themselves with every conversation they share. Perhaps that has always been the hidden purpose behind this journey. Not merely to teach them how to love another person, but to teach them that they were never required to sacrifice themselves in order to deserve love. That lesson has become part of who they are now. They no longer believe that carrying every burden alone makes them stronger. They understand that true strength also means allowing someone to stand beside them, to encourage them, to understand them, to see both their confidence and their vulnerability with the same kindness. As this quiet transformation continues, they are becoming someone who no longer mistakes exhaustion for devotion, no longer mistakes constant sacrifice for affection, no longer mistakes being needed for being loved. Instead, they are discovering something infinitely more beautiful, a love that asks neither heart to disappear, a love where honesty is welcomed, where peace feels natural, where silence is comfortable, where both people are valued simply because they are present, and perhaps without either of you fully realizing it yet. That understanding is already shaping a future far different from anything fear once imagined. Because the greatest gift your soulmate has received was never learning how to become more useful. It was finally believing that their heart had always been worthy of love, even on the days when it had nothing left to prove.